Yes, hello and welcome. Today we're going to the museum and art gallery to have a look at the Cyclone Tracy, and then after that we're gonna see the sunset at the beach. So come along and we'll keep and uh, we'll go and have a look. Cheers.
Back in the 1970s and probably for decades before that.
And I was getting soaking wet. No, not really wet from the rain. But I was staying in. Walk out into mum and dad's bedroom. I was asleep. And the only thing that can wake me up is the clock. I went to the bed, it was wet. And I went to get my towel.
Keep tuned to radio or put it in your broadcast. Fasten down your house by making sure all doors and windows are securely fastened or strengthened by diagonal strips of heavy adhesive tape. Remove all pictures from walls and all table ornaments. These can be lethal. When a cyclone comes, remain calm and stay inside. Additional protection may be obtained by sheltering under tables or beds, especially for young children. Only go under elevated houses as a last resort. If your home is a caravan, you should seek more substantial shelter. If the building shows signs of breaking up, stand in doorways or shelter in the bathroom. Keep listening to Weather Bureau messages in case the cyclone curves back.
The term Merry Christmas will probably always be a dirty term to Darwin people following Cyclone Tracy. One of the sad things about it is that I don't think anyone really took the danger seriously. But only a couple of weeks beforehand we had Cyclone Selma and it turned into a bit of wind, a lot of rain. Didn't really spoil pre-Christmas festivity. Cyclone Tracy seemed like all the others. Sundown on Christmas Eve, there's a bit more wind, a bit more rain. But I don't think anyone's going to allow it to spoil their Christmas. Plus with the ABC, it wasn't really a matter of reporting a tragedy. It was living it because we shared the story of Cyclone Tracy with everyone else. And our story is the same story as everyone else.
The voice is that of an ABC reporter in Darwin, Mike Hayes. The film, the first seen by a shot for Australia, was shot by a colleague, Keith Bushnell, early on Christmas Day.
Don't go and let anything spoil our Christmas. But really the warnings were given by the Bureau of Meteorology did stress that this was a nasty, mean little cyclone, but it had to compete with the festive season and the festive feeling of people. This feeling must have started disappearing en masse at about midnight because it looked then like something was really starting to happen. The wind built up and built up to probably the first stage of Cyclone Tracy, when the trees were stripped of everything and were horizontal with the ground, the same way as the rain got horizontal in houses. This lasted, I suppose, till 2:30, 3 o'clock, and then there was a lull. The eye of the cyclone. Now part of Darwin, perhaps we all wandered out to look at the damage. Didn't look too bad, just thought, well, it was very terrible. It's the worst thing that's ever happened with the lives of most of us, but we've survived. We went in and assured the kids that Santa would be able to brave Cyclone Tracy without any trouble. Then Tracy really struck. There had been damage, there had been sheets of iron torn off roofs, there had been roof joists torn away, and these came back at us from a different angle at possibly twice the speed of the first day, an estimated 200 miles an hour in some cases. The wind was so fast that the wind measurement equipment at the Darwin airport broke. A cyclone has a sound. It's not merely the sound of wind or the odd thump of something hitting the house. Perhaps the most terrifying sound 40,000 feet Australians have ever heard. The sound of literally millions of sheets of corrugated iron being scraped across the ground at 200 miles an hour and bumped into rather flimsily built fiberboard building. And this is where the damage is caused. I was instantly reminded, and other people have been too, of the similarity of the first shots of atom bomb attacks on the two cities in Japan. Later in the day, we checked out the worst area, the devastated northern suburbs. Near houses that literally exploded off their piers. People have been left sitting on bare floorboards or in the concrete storage sheds under the piers. Or worse still, were trapped. One big worry about Cyclone Tracy was that we felt that the people down south didn't know that we were in trouble, that they were enjoying Christmas quite unaware that we'd been wiped out. It wasn't until late in the afternoon we managed to get the first story through, and this was by using ship's radio and contacting Perth for the story to be sent through. It took almost 4 hours to establish radio contact with Perth.
It was late on Christmas Day before the rest of the nation realized the magnitude of the disaster. The armed services responded immediately on orders from the Natural Disasters Organization. Its chief, Major General Stretton, flew to Darwin to take charge. The Air Force began a massive airlift. The Army flew in engineers and signalers, and instantly the Navy readied for sea. The immediate aim was to ensure that Darwin had the basic requirements for survival. Emergency supplies were taken in by air, and within 2 days, more were on the way in 10 ships of the Australian Navy. The flagship Melbourne, the Stuart, Brisbane, Smallwood, Supply, Vendetta, Hobart, Flinders, and the landing craft Balikpapan and Batam. The British submarine Ocean also set out for Darwin the use of the floating powerhouse. At the same time, Army supplies, including medical equipment and food, were being prepared for air freighting to Darwin.
This day, because help yourself to whatever relief was available. And this was generally done in the most responsible way. In fact, the largest emergency centres established at places like Casuarina High School were set up by private citizens actually entering the high school and opening them up so they could become refugee camps.
At the moment, they're reasonably all right for doctors. There are a lot of doctors in Darwin, they've all run around. So have the sisters. But it's becoming difficult to deploy people because we haven't got the transport to shift them around the place. Today out here, we're hoping to lift off most of our population. But last night we had about 3,000. We're hoping that at least 1,000 of those will get out today. And we're waiting for supplies coming in on the plane today of immunisations against typhoid or cholera. Otherwise, the medical supplies have been adequate. We're doing all right. We got one of the little babies out yesterday, so we're not in any danger of deaths from gastroenteritis, so we get pretty uncomfortable.
We've been out to our leprosarium. Our sisters run the government leprosarium, or they work for the government, and there are still about 80 natives out there, 80 lepers.
What does the cyclone do to us?
Well, it's really a rout-off, and I don't think they intend doing very much. It can't be restored, really. It'll have to be just bulldozed.
A giant American Starlifter joined the many Australian Air Force and civilian aircraft taking supplies to Darwin and then flying out refugees. Medical supplies were given priority. The situation in Darwin was reported tense, but under control, with no breakdown in health. The Assistant Medical Superintendent at Darwin Hospital, Dr. Jeff Greenaway.
The cyclone gradually built up to a crescendo with an increasing noise, accompanied by smashing glass and tearing roofs. And then it was quite classical because in the middle we had a very brief lull, rather than a complete calm, a lull. And then the wind came from the opposite direction with an absolute roar. Most of the damage around the hospital appears to have happened at this time. Windows blew in, roofs tearing off, verandas disappearing, walkways battered, steam pipes burst, oxygen supply pipes damaged, almost paralyzing the hospital services.
In Darwin, men and women of the emergency services put aside their personal worries to keep things running as efficiently as possible. The help came quickly from the south, with the arrival of doctors and nurses, police and service personnel from all over Australia. At this stage, the known death toll was more than 40. Scores of people were still reported missing, and the search was going on for people buried in the rubble of their homes. One woman, 73 years old, was found alive after being trapped for 4 days. Another Darwin resident who escaped with her life on the day of Cyclone Tracy was Mrs. Margaret Dockery.
Without their flying sheet of iron off the roof next door and blew through the bedroom window. So we made the door flew open. We made it down to the kitchen. My life went out. I had a torch in his hand. I went to get a box of matches to light the light. The next thing I knew, I was blowing out with the refrigerator and the kitchen sink. The cupboard.
Where did you land?
On the lawn, under the window. I don't remember very much for a little while. The next thing, my husband shining the torch is the first thing I remember. He found me between the refrigerator and the kitchen sink. With a cover on my head and a few graves, that's all. I lost a lot of blood, but otherwise I was all right.
You must be thankful though just to be one of those who are alive.
Oh, I am very thankful. because the refrigerator later are full of people. All they keep sick.
The decision to thin out the population of Darwin led to the biggest civilian airlift in Australia's history. Among the first out were the Indians, the vanguard of some 19,500 people brought south in the airlift, which was at full pressure for almost a week. At Sydney's Kingsford Smith Airport and airports in other capitals, voluntary organisations rallied behind the state emergency service. On one day, 40 flights were made from Darwin by military aircraft and jet airliners of Qantas and domestic commercial airlines. At the peak of the airlift, a Qantas jumbo flew out with 674 refugees. It was a world record for a civilian airlift. Sydney's Royal North Shore Hospital received some of the first badly injured victims. They all told of their helplessness in the face of the most destructive winds ever recorded in Australia. A factory storeman, Mr. Blond Jeffries, had been trapped for hours in a collapsed brick building. Other victims were a food company salesman, Mr. Colin Clough, and his 3 children, including his 12-year-old daughter, Kim.
What happened to you and your family at your house? Well, we're really worried about 1:32 o'clock. When the complete roof of the house just disappeared. So the only thing we could do is get the children underneath the main bed. This was all right for half an hour or so, and then the complete house, the walls and all just disappeared. Leaving us down on the yard, just getting us up through down on the yard. About 2 minutes later, the floor and everything disappeared. So we spent the last 2 hours on the yard outside the house, or where the house was. Naked textbook, just in the soil. What happened to your wife? My wife was killed. Flying debris. Kim, what was it like?
I don't know. All I can remember is my dad saying, keep down, keep down. And then when it got a bit lighter, we went out for his car and my brother. My brother was. My dad was really fainting from the loss of blood. And we started to beat the horn. Our neighbours come and help us to the hospital. And they gave us a lot of attention and care for us.
22? 22?
Hello, I'm pretty sure that's her place.
Tens of thousands of Australians and people overseas clamoured for information about relatives and friends in Darwin.
You there? We've got no information of the Douglases at the moment. We've got a list of 5,000 waiting for to come in.
Now they're just coming out now, they're coming out every 4 hours.
They're coming out every 4 hours, so it's just got Here at the ABC, we just couldn't go to air to let people know what was happening. In fact, when we finally did on Boxing Day, we thought it was a big major execution. Just decided uplifted in the faces of the people. There's not here something that you're going to let them know that was going on.
For us, be very sparing and careful in the use of water, because supplies are limited and likely to be limited for a considerable time until the proper flow of essential services is restored. Be very careful in your use of water. Boil water before drinking it, and before handling food, if you can steep your hands in some antiseptic solution. This is ABC Radio, back on the air in Darwin.
To assess the disaster, several ministers from Canberra flew to Darwin, among them the acting Prime Minister, Dr. Kemp.
What happened to Darwin on Christmas morning has never happened in Australia before. Darwin is devastated. Darwin is destroyed. Darwin looks like a battlefield or a Hiroshima. The people of Darwin have been magnificent through it all. To come to the aid of Darwin is our greatest national challenge for 30 years.
The Prime Minister, Mr. Whitlam, interrupted his overseas tour to visit Darwin.
Inevitably went back to the early 1940s when I first saw this city, not very long after it had been bombed by the Japanese. And it's heartbreaking to see that all the effort that's been made over a whole generation to house people in this city has been destroyed last Christmas. Because there's no more people can live in Darwin in present conditions than were able to live there during the war. And the people who live in Darwin now enjoy no better conditions than they did during the war. Now the great thing I have to say to the people of Darwin is the Australian government is determined to see that Darwin is rebuilt and restored, and the citizens of Darwin are rehabilitated and returned.
Friends and relatives waited for hours at southern airports. But before leaving on the flight south, many of the refugees had waited several days for notification of their departure details. Some had only the clothes they wore. Some had left Darwin without being able to say goodbye to fathers and husbands. But at all the southern airports, as here in Adelaide, everyone tried to give them some comfort. There was an overwhelming nationwide urge to help. Appeals for food and clothing met with such a generous response that some voluntary organisations had trouble coping with it all. Millions of dollars poured into appeal parties. Families dipped into their Christmas stocks to provide food to the Darwin victims. Many even gave their Christmas cakes. Despite the complexity of the airlift and the hastily organised services backing it up, the whole operation throughout Australia went off smoothly. Social workers in Brisbane found themselves faced with some unexpected problems. For example, a great many of the Darwin babies were suffering from nappy rash through lack of clean, dry clothes. It had also been difficult to get water to keep the children clean. The refugees weren't able to bring much with them, but then they didn't have much to bring. An extraordinary number of women and children arrived needing shoes. Chaos after cyclones as severe as Tracy, it seems that shoes are hard to find. By and large, the refugees reached the south still shocked and stunned. They'd kept their emotions under control on the crowded aircraft, but they all had their own story of terror and tragedy.
What was it really like in Darwin before you left?
Hell,
In what way?
Darwin doesn't know existed anymore.
Has it been completely flattened, has it?
Darwin's flat. Yeah, there's coast and a few odd rooms on houses, but basically it's just like
What about the people there? Are they finding accommodation there? Or?
people are generally speaking, everyone's marvelous, everyone's sitting together with what's left, all the food.
How are they being accommodated?
Well, in whatever's standing, under houses, any sheds that are left standing, under the messes, you know.
And then, so what about food, water and milk?
Well, there's no water.
No water.
No. I mean, rain. What about rainwater?
Is there any organised help there?
I think everyone's organised themselves fairly well, especially on the rest of us. We've had lucky to...
Well, what's so much damage at the rat face?
Oh, yeah. It's all damage. But we've got, I don't know, maybe men that are marvellous to get together. Absolutely unbelievable. You just couldn't credit what they've gone through. I didn't think it would ever end. It went and went and went from about 6 o'clock in the morning, and it just seemed to get worse and worse and worse. Oh, it's unbelievably true.
Daddy told me to go in my brother's, but then into Mummy's and Daddy's bed, and then into the lounge. And when the roof collapsed, we hid our head under a cushion, and Mummy said go to the archway, so we were all scared not we got all cut.
Oh, it's just undescribable, you know.
crashing down on the staircase. It was unreal.
We were under the bed, 3 kids, my husband and myself, under a single bed with 2 vinyl mattresses over the top of it. On behalf of my husband and I, we'd like to thank everybody who assisted us on our journey down here and for helping us.
What sort of assistance?
They helped us with plane and food and helped with babies. And it was really great. We really appreciate it.
Where are you going to now?
To my husband's uncle. We helped with Park. No, I don't know who he is, but I'm going to meet him in a couple of hours. Well, we hope to stop about 2 or 3 years until they get some decent answers on Darwin.
The people of Darwin have already started rebuilding part of their city, but the overall reconstruction plan will be determined by a commission set up by the Australian government. It will be headed by a leading industrialist, Sir Leslie Peace. Estimates of the cost run as high as $600 million. Hundreds of tradesmen have already been flown in to accelerate the restoration of essential service. Priority is being given to repairing power and telephone lines. More than 31,000 people have left Darwin either by air or road, reducing the population to about 15,000. By the new year, at least 48 people are known to have died, but the final death toll may not be known for weeks. Less than a week after arriving in Darwin, the civilian head of the Natural Disasters Organization, Major General Stratton, returned control to the local authorities. Earlier, the General had said,
In the light of the information available to me, and knowing we have got to get people out here until, in case something happens, the danger period is now, between now and the 1st of January, we have got to do what we're doing now and hold on until then.
It became the biggest peacetime operation ever mounted by the Royal Australian Navy. The first ships to reach Darwin were the destroyer Brisbane and the survey ship Flinders. With the subsequent arrival of the rest of the fleet, there were 3,000 Navy men to help with relief work. Part of the Navy's task is to go through the rubble and salvage valuables for their owners to claim later. The Flinders began an immediate survey of harbour channels and anchorages. While the task force goes about the big relief operation, Navy clearance divers continue their search of the harbour for the wrecks of boats which sank during the cyclone. The divers are also trying to see if the sunken patrol boat Arrow can be raised to the surface. Despite the arrival of the Navy task force, people are still leaving, heading down the track. One of the 12,000 who left by road in the week following the cyclone is cameraman Steve Bushnell.
When I left Darwin, it was with very mixed feelings, but I was almost sure that there would be much worse to come in the following days. I didn't know how far I was going, but I was just heading south. I suppose you try to get some attention from somebody. There's not much point if everybody in every house is in the same state. When we got down to Adelaide River, which is 72 miles out of Darwin, there were tables and chairs and people saying, come and have a cup of tea, a cup of coffee. And I was moved, and I saw people at that stage probably taking a breath and crying. And Shannon Creek, and then again I saw people breaking up and letting themselves go for the first time.
Yes, I want to go back very much because unlike the people who are the Darwinites or the Territorians, they believe in it, I believe in it, and I believe that Darwin has a great future. The members of Parliament were there, the government was there, they believe that it has a great future. Everything that can be done will be done to put Darwin back on the map.
And we must make this clear that the people in Darwin, many of them, very large proportion, are identified with Darwin. It's their home, it's their way of life. And we are going to assure them quite genuinely that their home and their way of life will continue. Darwin is far too significant in Australian history for it not to exist, but it might be a new city, it might be a redesigned city, it could even be far, far better than before.
Darwin has grown quite haphazardly. It hasn't been well designed. It's vulnerable in many ways, but with careful thought, it can be far better in the future. What are you going to do now?
Well, first I'm supposed to stay here, but they're going to send me south shortly. But I don't know when.
Would you come back to Darwin?
Definitely. I've been here 27 years. I don't want to leave.
Well, this is my last day in what will probably be known in the future as Old Darwin. In the last week or so, incredible things have happened, incredible individual efforts have been made, brave promises of a new Darwin, a safer, better Darwin. These promises have been made in terms of buildings, amenities. Like, I think a lot of the people who've left, I'm just wondering about the new Darwin. It might be safer, it might be newer. The Darwin was a place of character. It wasn't a very pretty place. It was a place of people with a unique way of life. I only hope the new Darwin has that character. This is Mike Hayes for ABC News, and the wreckage was once a bloody good place to live.
Okay. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. All the people. Unreal. And the camels. What a good photo that would be if there was no other people. want to get a selfie. Now I'll leave this running. It's nearly still hurts your eyes when you keep on looking at it.
Is there a bit of smoke or something?
Yeah, haze type.
Like an airplane on top.
Nearly.
Arms against it.
Everyone's clapping.